I'll just give an intro of what is the importance of safe OPD clinics in ongoing COVID times. So, because the coronavirus, the present novel coronavirus, which is the SARS-CoV-2, is little different from its predecessors, which were SARS-CoV-1, which came 2 decades back, and a decade back, what came as MERS. This is different because those two viruses came out in nasal droplets on sneezing or after the start of rhinitis or on cough. Whereas on the other hand, the novel coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2, comes out in breath, even in an asymptomatic person or in the pre-symptomatic phase. So he could be an asymptomatic carrier or he could be in the pre-symptomatic phase, which means the person who is meeting you in the OPD does not know he is carrying the virus. So he doesn't have fever, he doesn't have cold, he doesn't have sore throat, he doesn't have nothing at all. So, because at the moment, it's beyond 45 days in India and many countries. It's almost like 60 days and 70 days and 90 days. And so the community spread has started. So then you don't know because travel history and he is not come into contact with anyone who's positive for coronavirus. Then he comes to see you in the OPD. That creates a challenge. You have to protect yourself. In this lockdown phase, when the hospitals are working at a low key, that's only 20% of their OPD patients they are seeing, and that too only on an emergency basis. And also admitting and treating as inpatients only a few cases, and it doesn't go on a full-scale mission at this point of time, then it's easy to protect oneself. All the medical staff, everybody can be protected with PPEs and all those stuff, and we can really maintain the social distancing and all that. But once the lockdown period is over and the whole scenario comes opened up, that is even more challenging than the present time, according to me, because every single person that you see after the lockdown period is over in the hospital, in the OPD, still you have to consider that person as a potential carrier of the coronavirus, even though he is asymptomatic. So that is the idea why we wanted to take this to you. And we have to go through a lot of things that we can do, which we have done even at AGM Hospital. So we're just geared up to receive all the patients in full swing. So right from giving appointments, like not more than 5 cases an hour, and then making them sit outside, and then even in the OPD, the distance spacing, and so many things are there in the forthcoming days, at least until December. I think we'll have to be aware of this, which is going to go on. So that is why we have an eminent speaker here, and Dr. Suman, who's been in UK and in India in several centers and in several other countries. He's been trained in Korea and elsewhere. So he's here to explain how best can we protect ourselves, the doctors and the staff nurses and the paramedical staff in the hospital. And added on is Dr. Madhura Prasad, who has had a vast experience also in Manipal KMC, and then she's been here. So she will also add on to how to protect the medical faculty from getting into coronavirus. Because some of the professions like orthopedics and neurosurgery, even though we're not speaking about surgery, anything that drills and produces an aerosol, dentistry, nasal EA, all people will come in the face, and even ophthalmology, all those are at very high risk. So now I'm handing over the mic to Dr. Suman to start his lecture, and then we'll have a panel discussion after his lecture is over. Please start putting up your questions in the chat box. So please, please mute your speech. So please mute your mic on that. We'll continue. Please remember to put up your questions on the chat box. As questions come, I keep on typing out the questions. We'll just take it up at the end of this presentation.
A sincere request to all the delegates to keep your mics muted until the presentation gets over. You can put in your questions in the chat box below. Dr. Suman and the panelists would be answering each of the questions at the end of the session. Dr. Suman, over to you. You can just enlarge your screen. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Suman here. So, I've had enough webinars in the last 1 month, but this is something more practical than more theoretical. So, I know webinars are source of anger now, and of course, people are really bored and they're to death because of all the webinars. But still, both the policeman and the doctor still understand the importance and all the risks of the virus. But though we understand the risk, we have to take options to safeguard ourselves. So, exactly in February, you see this article in February 24th, even doctors wondered why Corona has not come to India, and many people outrightly said that it will never come in this country because of various reasons. Not on the stage, no? Just a moment, please. Some technical issue. Okay. Yeah. There was this latitude longitude hypothesis which said that certain temperatures is where the coronavirus thrives. But now we know it is spread across in all the regions. It has not even spared Arctic Circle. And two, as doctors, as the kingdom of our empires, be it a hospital or a OPD clinic, it is our duty to ensure patient safety, staff safety of ourselves and our other doctors, and all the medical legal consequences which are involved here. Three, even in normal times, out of 10 patients, 8 or 9 do not listen to us and don't follow all our orders. The same goes for social distancing. Many understand, still much many more do not understand it. 4, ultimately, doctors are told that you have made a mistake. This has happened everywhere throughout the world, especially in India and many cities. The first one being the famous Bilwara episode, and much more after that in Mumbai, Hyderabad, so many places, etc., which I'm sure all of you read in the papers. Why? Corona is not only a respiratory infection. It's not that only that kind of serology reports are coming. There's a paper from Singapore which says false positive dengue tests come up in corona patients. The other cases where thrombotic phenomenon, microthrombotic phenomena have been reported. For example, cardiologists have told patients are having ST depression, they go for a what we call angiography, and it turns out to be absolutely normal. So these patients, corona is also affecting the blood vessels. Some patients get abdomen pain, etc. So we should be careful and consider every patient positive unless proven otherwise. And 6, yes, way back, look at this map here. We had cases 1, 2, 3, etc. in different parts of the country in February. Some said this is transient and it will go off because it is just the influx of youngsters who work overseas and come back. But now it has spread way across the country. And yes, there have been incidents in Mumbai where a doctor has filed a case upon by a patient. And one more, look at this letter from Agra. The IMA had to defend a doctor. Look at the words. FIR has been registered against Dr. Sunil when he unknowingly treated a patient in his hospital, which later came out to be COVID-19 positive. We all know there is a window period, a huge incubation period for this virus. So we have to keep ourselves safe also from a medical legal aspect. This is a very small number, 5 private hospitals closed. Patients knowingly or unknowingly come to us. Now the numbers is more than 20, 30 something throughout the country, and we have to safeguard ourselves. Another example of another hospital being closed following appendectomy. And sometimes the patients take paracetamol, etc., and come and hide their fever history. I had a couple of patients with ankle pain, etc., and later on probing found that they had come from a quarantine zone. And finally, this is the Bell's curve, even during our normal OPD times. The 10% of the population on the extreme right-wing side, they are a little something like what we call an angry bird. So this is going to be the same throughout because of human mentality. And it is our duty to safeguard ourselves by taking absolute precautions in maintaining distancing and using protective measures. With this small introduction, I go on to the actual topic of the day, the safe COVID practices which we practice in our hospital. This is a total picture strip presentation from now on. Remember this. Rule number 1, minimize the personal belongings you bring to the hospital like cell phone, wallets. Try to avoid laptops, books, etc. Number 2, distance is the key here. no going near the patient at all. Number 3, the lesser contact, lesser surfaces you touch and have contact with, like some of us have the habit of leaning on walls, etc. You try to avoid touching the surfaces. It does not infect others, or you don't pick up the infection from that. And that has to be a constant reminder by all the staff and the doctors, and there has to be training sessions for both throughout. Rules have changed. So let me give you some ideas offered here. I'm sure you can adapt it and rechange it however you want, whether you're running single OPD suites, multiple OPD suites without lab, X-ray, etc. Some of us have day care beds in our clinics for giving IV fluids, etc. Small nursing homes as well as multi-specialty centers will find this beneficial. Mobile phones being the most common item, as you can see here, a simple polyethylene cover is more than enough, and you can tap like some substance to clean it up. One of my medical officers in a hospital uses soap water straight because his phone is well covered like this. So, welcome to VGM Hospital. This is the place where usually the cars fly through every day. Yes, this is the corridor. You can see the road on the extreme left side, and the right side is the building. Now, cars are made to park in the car park, and we have arranged a makeshift arrangement with the Shamiana, and you can see how the chairs are arranged with quite a distance. So our security personnel, our infection nurse, and the front in charge nurse is taking care of things in the morning when the patients have started to flow. We have put up a standee both in Tamil and English. I was showing the English one, so that patients are reminded if they have this kind of history, they have to report immediately. Number 3, with I just stopped, the event manager was very happy to lend this to us. You can see this is a stainless steel water are there. We have added the soap dispenser. All patients and attenders should compulsorily wash the hands over 20 seconds with soap and come inside. This will be monitored by the infection control nurse. The Indian system in slippers outside temples. Hospitals are temple, so let the patients follow this. Anyway, we scrub the floors almost every 1 or 2 hours and keep it clean. So let the patients follow this principle. Chairs, we have 2 sets of plastic chairs like this kept for the patient. It's quite easy to clean them and transport them. And on a makeshift basis, one set is kept in the sun and the other set is used. And that's the sister pointing the thermometer gun. And as you can see, there is a red line between the patient and the nurse who is using the thermometer gun. This is the distance to be maintained. And that is a temporary desk for her where she keeps all the equipment to check the patient's vitals and take some history, etc. She asks the question for any fever or any history of travel. If the answer to either of them is yes, the doctor walks outside and starts asking questions before even sending the patient inside. And we have also learned over time. Look at the 2 images. After the first 2 days, one of our staff nurses suggested that we put up pipelines like this and add transparent sheets so that there is no droplet transmission across the face, and there is a hole kept at the bottom where the patient can. Can I suggest everyone to put their mics on mute, please? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so in that hole, the patient will put his or her hand across, and the BP can be measured. And no cluttering up of desks. Doctors and nurses love to clutter their desk. See how systematically only these things are allowed on her desk. One visor for her, one paper sheet, and the pen. The pen stays in the same place even for the next day. They do not pocket the pen and go. The temperature, pulse oximeter, and the BP apparatus. Beyond these 5 items or 6 items, nothing else is allowed as part on this table. And at the end of the day, the nurse throws away the newspaper, cleans it, and keeps it again. Yes, depending on your risk, mask alone may not be sufficient. Use a visor like this. In the Indian scenario, this helmet visor costs only around 30 to 75 rupees. Some tougher models cost around 100 rupees. Or dentists, ENT doctors, etc., who think they have to go nearer to the patient's face can wear this head cap. They can have a few sets of it. Some of these models are washable so that they can recirculate it every day, even for the OPD clinics. It is not open in the front. It is having another transparent sheet there also, so there is no contact with the eyes also. So we all know there is not only respiratory transmission, there is also a conjunctival transmission, etc. So this will protect quite well. So Mask is compulsory for every patient. Our pharmacy faces on the outer side. I know the cloth masks are okay, but we educate them to buy 3-ply. The nurse outside who tests the temperature requests this, and all patients oblige happily because they also want to be safe. Attenders are also requested. Preferably, the attenders are placed outside. If the patient can manage the history himself or herself. Now, why mask? We all know that the infected person is the one who has to wear a mask. But there is a study here which says, let's say a COVID-19 carrier doesn't wear a mask, but the doctor still wears, that is a 70% transmission rate. Vice versa, when the carrier wears the mask and the doctor doesn't wear, the risk is still 5%. But if both of them are wearing a mask, the risk is only 1.5%, and we can take other measures to bring it down further. So mask is the first and the single most barrier. When both are wearing it, 3-ply is the most minimum, which is essential, preferably. 2, gloves. We insist on this principle of double glove and with double color. Look at this sister who's modeling for me. She's wearing an outer white glove and an inner blue glove, right? Okay, so reason is if the glove tags, we will know. And 2, the blue glove always stays in the hands unless she's going to remove it for washing her hands. Otherwise, it will stay her throughout her OPD duty time. And between patients, the outer glove is changed. Only on an emergency basis, sterilium is allowed to be used on the glove and on the white glove itself. Just for a joke, if you see the image on the right side, there is a small pout. It's a 6 finger. And this, even before the patient enters inside, this is something like a hot air oven. This was actually in our house. Whenever we go for travel and come, all the clothes are kept inside this, and at 70 degrees, it is warmed up. This will kill all the moth bugs and all germs, etc. So we have placed this now in the hospital. As you can see the image on the right top side, there is a thermostat down where we can adjust the temperature. And it's a Rexin cloth with a zipper model. And you can see you may hang things, or patients have, we have patients who go for 3-4 hospitals and come. They have a lot of files and papers are carrier of dust and fomites. So keep we ask the infection control nurse to keep all this, files, etc. inside the hot air chamber, and then after 30 minutes, it is removed out. 30 seconds, it's removed out. And this is the actual security desk where the security checks sits, and now it has been converted into a temporary screening OPD where our doctor sits. The regular 3-sided screen, which we use as a barrier between patients in the wards, has been converted with a transparent sheet at the center, as you can see. The green sheets are maintained on the 2 sides. So this acts as a barrier between the doctor and the patient per se. Once again, look at the image on the right side, the single image. No cluttering above the doctor's desk. Only 5 files, one for ortho, gastro and multi-specialty, 1 consent form, 1 prescription form, and 1 form for filling up any investigations has been placed here. And the pen again never leaves this table. We are very specific about each point we say, which we have done to the best of our knowledge. So this is the consent form, both in Tamil and English languages. All doctors can convert the English form into their respective regional language model on their own. And the ER department is the first place where all patients will go as per requirement, and they do not go straight to the OP. In fact, the first 5 to 10 patients of the day throughout we have been following. All the examination and investigations are completed in the ER before the actual crowd comes in. So as you can see, over the bed, we have placed the polythene sheets, which are quite thick, and they are changed regularly between patients. And you can see the image on the right bottom. Usually the white sheet, the white thick non-transparent sheet covers throughout, but we have replaced it as half and half, 1 for the privacy of the patient and 2 for the protection of both the patient and the doctor. And if you watch more closely, the image on the left side, there is a hole with the pen mark, which is stitched at the edges. If the doctor wants to examine the patient, he or she can lean across the arm inside and examine the abdomen or the knee or any part of the body. Or if required, the sheet as such is shifted on and the patient is examined. This principle we have adopted throughout the hospital wherever we need it. And 2, social distancing between patients and attenders. In many hospitals, in many places, they suggested 1:1. We have made it as 2:1. 2 seats are locked in between, and the patients have to sit on either ends. This used to be the regular place where our OPD is. In our hospital, we have a gastro OPD with 7 consultation suites and a multi-specialty OPD with 4 consultation suites. For now, we have shut the gastro suite, and all patients, gastro, ortho or otherwise, are seen in the multi-specialty area. So once upon a time, BC is before Corona, not before Christ time. So this was how our patients used to sit happily like in a marriage hall. I don't think we can allow this for quite some time. What do the parents say? No way at all. So we have to follow the principles of isolation and segregation for them. So this is from Chinese people only. An invention in Wuhan. All of you have seen this. The toothpick model for the lips. I need not elaborate this more. We follow it here right from day one. And 2, reduce the square feet area of your clinic or your hospital. Your clinic may be just having 750 square feet. Reduce at least 200 square feet where nobody walks. Or if it's a hospital, cut down by 1/3, because the more the contact area, the more you'll have to clean. The more patients touch the floor, the walls, etc., or you touch the floor, wall, etc., the greater the risk of transmission. So we have barricaded few areas where we think nobody needs to walk across. This is a reception. Once again, the polyethylene thick sheet, thick GSM, in fact, has been suspended from top, and there is quite a distance between the receptionist, the cashier, and the patients who will come and stand here. This is our infection control nurse, grinning on the right side, and she's trying to hand a credit card just to demonstrate how to do billing is done. It is not received straight away by our receptionist or cashier. It is placed across on a tray, and the cashier takes it. Receptionist and cashier also wears the gloves so that they need not touch the credit card and money directly. Everybody invariably is gloved. We know that the unsterile gloves, 100 pack, hardly cost few hundred rupees. Each glove is in a single value. It plays a huge role in saving our staffs also. This is the waiting hall. So we have 4 OPD suites. Apart from, I am not talking about the ER, this is the actual OPD area. We have 4 OPD suites, so 4 set of chairs have been placed. At a time, only 4 patients are allowed to be there. And once they go for that test, the next set of patients come. And there are doctors in each OPD chamber. So as you can see, it is quite well ventilated and quite a lot of distance has been maintained between each set of patients, as high as 10 feet far away. Let me show you 2 OPD rooms out of the 4, how it looks. Number 1, doctors love to mess up their table with all sorts of papers, studies, journals, newspapers, textbooks, storybooks, etc. We are very strict, no bringing anything and no taking anything out of here. As you can see on the table, there are only 4 type of forms which are required along with a pen and a computer if they want to enter data on cloud. Okay, and the X-ray unit, etc. is there. Each OPD chamber, you can see a door next to the doctor on the right side. Yes, there is a back door. We keep both the front and the back doors entry for cross ventilation purpose. Air conditions are never switched on, though it is a summer month. And this is the patient examination bed. Once again, the transparent sheet is pushed out. There is one sister who comes, first makes the patient sit down, and everybody will be silent. Once the patient sits down, then the conversation starts about the history. So even the history taking is done across from the examination couch only. As you can see, there are no chairs here at all for patient to sit. One more OPD suite for your referral. There is a hand wash for each room. So if the doctor accidentally touches the patient beyond the glove, wash up to the elbows. Even the sister can wash up to the elbow and come using soap and disinfectant. Again, 2 doors are there for cross ventilation purpose. This is the blood collection unit. Once again, just like checking the BP, there is a cross. We have barricaded the area between the. This is a very close area because the lab technician really has to bend down, come very close. So we just did like this, and they are very happy about it. Once again, infection control nurse is monitoring 2 times. Yeah. So just pause it, please. Pause the video. Okay. Before I go on to the rest, we all know how to hand wash. We have been taught everything is available online, but still I put up a video to demonstrate where we can miss. Because on the volar side, we have, remember the palm, the fingers and the crease. On the dorsal side, the dorsum, the fingers and the fingertips. I am dividing between the finger and the fingertip. You know why on this video. And finally for the thumb and the wrist. So it's totally 8 areas we have to think. Look at this video. Please start it again. Beginning. Okay. This is a. So he's touching with sand and demonstrating. He's using black paint to demonstrate where he's washing.
Vamos a poner jabón en la palma de nuestras manos, vamos a frotar entre sí. El siguiente paso es frotar entre
Pause, please. Okay, so that was for the volar, but still he has not done the creases, palmar creases of the volar side. And now we shift to the dorsum. Continue, please. Just for the dorsum of the hand and the proximal fingers. The tips are still left out. It's a commonly missed area. And now for the thumb and the wrist. Let us study. And that's for the palmar creases. And finally for the wrist. So that completes it. Way back, Lister, the father of disinfection, said hand wash is the best disinfectant, and we always have to wash hands with soap because in the presence of dust and dirt, the viruses and bacteria will not go. So simple hand wash and for a few seconds will not help. Hand wash for minimum of 20 seconds, preferably for 30 seconds when blood or other solutions have fallen, is a must. Okay. Do sanitizers help? This was a famous joke I got through WhatsApp from one of my doctor's friend. This is Aladdin and Jasmine from the famous cartoon. So sanitizers do help. There is no doubt about it. Except when there is dirt, they do not help at all. And what sanitizer to use? Something with 70% alcohol is more efficient. So many substances in the market have a lesser concentration of alcohol, which do not help much at all. And no applying sanitizers mildly and just rubbing and leaving. It has to be done on all the sides again. Now, this just for a joke purpose, when doctors and hospitals have a deficiency of sanitizers, here is this guy wondering how to convert sanitizers into alcohol. In fact, there is I think in Japan or somewhere, vodka has been approved to be used as a sanitizer because of shortage of the actual sanitizer to scrub hands. And if you don't want to touch the sanitizer, here is a mechanical model. You press the foot down. Can you repeat this, please? Repeat down. Yeah, repeat. So press the leg down, and the sanitizer dispenses the solution from the top. This is a very cheap model, hardly costs 2,000 rupees, and it's a permanent investment and it is maintenance free except for oiling it. This was a local innovation, and I'm sure this will catch on in the future. And yes, this has always been there, especially in star hotels and what we call star hospitals. But all of you know, prices have gone up by 8 to 10 times, skyrocketed by 8 to 10 times. And the same has happened to this. Even today morning, I spoke to a dealer, and for this 1 liter sanitizer, I think he wants close to 3,000, 3,500 rupees, which is way absurd. We need not go into such costly measures at all when we take absolute precautions. Anyway, this is just for your referral. So, like I said, 70% alcohol, ethanol is sufficient. And apart from our hands, as the virus lives more on metallic surfaces, so we suggest everybody to the metallic surfaces to clean with the 70% alcohol. Can someone mute the mic, please? Somebody is talking, it's disturbing. Okay, coming on to PPEs. This is a very cumbersome piece of equipment to wear in the OPD suite in the summer month in a country like India. It is very difficult. Accepted if you're going to use it in the theater or for some procedure or in the ICU, but not in the OPD. But it's up to you all to use it because some of them comes in the Rexin model, and I've seen people waste sweat across. And number 2, yes, there is a huge deficiency of PPEs. Again, at least for our hospital, are procured from a cost of 250 rupees to straight up to 900 rupees from different people because we just want to procure them. And number 2, hanging the PPE. See, what does this PPE do? It protects you. And let's say the patient has coughed or something, all the coronavirus, etc., sits on the body of the PPE. You go and hang it again on the wall where there may be a calendar, there is a towel, there is a desk, so many things. It will stick everything across on that. And again, there is a recommendation that you can spray sanitizer on the PPE, but where is the sanitizer again? There is a huge deficiency of it. So let's be practical, and if needed, some of these PPEs, if you really want to use, buy a few sets and you can get it washed across in hypochlorite and you can reuse them. Or if you have a hot air oven like the way I said, which is not that expensive, this can be placed in the hot air oven and can be reused. So this is the area of controversy again, but I want to give the pros and cons of each. As far as I know from what I read in the WHO guidelines, prefer to have scrub dresses. Number one, that is very much true. And if you're wearing a scrub dress, prefer the half sleeve one, because if let's say you touch a surface, then you can still wash it with soap. We can wash up to above elbow and then our hand becomes clean again. But if you're going to use a full sleeve one and if you touch something, then you will be transmitting it to the next person. So unless you're in a fever clinic or somewhere where you want to protect yourself fully, it doesn't make sense to wear the full sleeve gown. Half sleeves are more than sufficient. This is given in the recommendation also. And finally, yes, all of us drive cars and go home. These are top 8 touch points where you touch in the car. And what you can do is have a small 100 ml sanitizer bottle on the side with a few gauze pieces. At the end, when you're leaving, just take them and wipe these 8 points and go. You practically, hopefully, wouldn't touch any of the other areas of the car. At least you won't be going for pleasure drives in the near future. And cleaning up your OPD or cleaning up your multi-specialty clinic or hospital. This is again a huge center of controversy, but I'll try to show some light on it and how we follow some principles here in our hospital. So initially it was thought that the virus is heat sensitive and it dies, but again now they're telling it's heat resistant, at least some sort of 65-70 degree exposure is required, etc., etc. So many controversies are there, but yes, we can do some things to clean up. And number 2, remember again, more than other surfaces like granite or what you call marble, etc., or wood, plastics and metal are the surfaces where we stay for a longer time. This has been given in a few articles which you can read it up. And number 2, try to clean your OPD at least twice a day. We do it on a 1 to 2 hour basis as much as possible. And 2 substances which I bring to highlight here. One is Lysol. It's a very common brand name, so I'm putting up the name straight away across to you. But many more other brands of Lysol are available now. Okay. In fact, we use something called Manzol or something in a hospital, which is a famous brand again. And what is this Lysol? It's 80% benzalkonium chloride. And number 2, the famous bleaching powder used for bathrooms and other places to scrub. The bleaching is technically sodium hypochlorite and the concentration suggested is 1%. So try to buy Lysol, which is having 80% concentration. If you go to the actual company website of Lysol itself, at least 20 items are described with varying concentrations. Try to pick up one with 80%. That's rule number 1. And number 2, we need 1 capful we have to add for 1 bucket of water, which is 4 liters. This is the minimum or maximum suggested dilution you can take, which is quite good. Maximum can cause some other irritability, etc. So better to stick on to these values. So what do you need Lysol for? Your computer, your keyboard, your telephone, lift button, lift walls, and other objects which you think applying bleaching powder or hypochlorite causes trouble for that material, or which you think you can't keep it clean with soap water, or sanitizers again, like I said, are in huge demand. So all these surfaces, Lysol is usually more than sufficient. But if you still have sanitizers and you want to, let's say, immediately clean your mouse before using the computer, you're welcome. Going to the right half of the screen regarding the bleaching powder, the 1% hypochlorite solution. So basically in a hospital, we have a little more concentration we use. So that is, normally you have to add 1000 ml plus 200 ml of 5% sodium hypochlorite solution. We add it in 800 to make it little more concentrated so that we have a little more better efficacy. All right. So this 5% hypochlorite is readily available in 5 liters, 10 liters, 15 liters, containers, and this can be bought commercially. It is quite easily available even in small shops. Choose a good brand which has the absolute correct concentration. So once that we have prepared this 1% hypochlorite solution, we can use it to mop the floors, the walls, the granite tables, stairs, rails, table chairs, practically everything you can use this. In fact, sometimes if it's an infected area, just to be safe and precautionary, let's say a patient comes with fever, etc. Once the patient leaves, no counting twice a day, thrice a day. Immediately we clean that area once with hypochlorite, and in a few minutes only we clean again with Lysol and play it double safe. This is the practices we are following. See, some of these ideas are not only from our hospital. We spoke to at least 20 or 30 other friends in different hospitals. We grabbed ideas, we exchanged ideas. We have been doing quite a lot of homework just for the safety of ourselves and for our patients. Fumigation, this is a standard fumigation machine, as we all know. And once again, if an infected patient has come and if a OP is less crowded, we preferably shift them to the OPD and the ER room is fumigated. Or let's say it is a CT scan room or a patient is taken to the theatre, even if it's a very minor procedure, we immediately fumigate. So what we use the mixture of hydrogen peroxide 11% and diluted silver nitrate 0.01%. Again, in the same proportion of 200 ml of this and 800 ml of water, put it in the fumigant and fumigate for around 15 to 20 minutes. 20 minutes is preferable. And yes, now that I showed some practical tips how we can maintain our OPD or what you call our hospitals or multi-speciality center. Yes, when children can learn how to behave, we can definitely teach our patients too. First, put up a standee. It will cost just 1,000 to 2,000 rupees because human beings as such is prone to make mistakes. If Adam made the first mistake, we are keeping on increasing it by exponential fashion. Add all the points you want in your standee so that the patient reads it when he's waiting for you, and mentally the patient is also ready to meet you with all precautions. It is quite common in countries like India and abroad to have pamphlets in the OPD. Patients read the pamphlet, see all the facilities of the center, leave it back for the next patient to see, or take it home. Try to avoid the pamphlets for the next few months because this is a place where fomite transmission can happen. Don't keep newspapers, don't keep magazines, anything at all in your OPD chamber for patients to see. If you require, keep an entertaining TV, record a video of yourself or a PowerPoint and put it up so that the patients can be watching it. Remember, you have to remind the patient, remind the patient, remind the patient. Human beings are prone for mistakes. We have to remind them again and again for all our safety. When all of us know this, the police people putting yellow marks across both on cars and two-wheelers, etc., so that they don't come across outside again. Just like they frame the rules and regulations, we can also frame our own rules and regulations here so that it is safe for everybody. So this is a slide I put up earlier. This was slide number 3. We understand the risk better and we need to be more cautious and take care of ourselves, the people are surrounding us, and the patients who come trusting us. This is our moral, ethical, and legal binding to them. Test kits, as you all know the stories of what's happening with the test kits now. Let's say a patient, let's say 3 months later, a patient who had corona, and he says, no, I'm absolutely fine, doctor, my test kit has come negative, nothing is there, nothing to worry about. There are cases which are still coming up. Patients who had corona earlier are getting reinfected. True or not, how it will go? Like I said, we still don't know fully about this virus. It is a novel virus. It is rapidly mutating. New strains are coming up. So we have to take all the universal precautions irrespective of who this patient is. So let's be cautious. And one more thing, we are a hugely populated country. Some of our OPDs throng from 50 to 150 OPDs a day. So we can't order tests right and left. It is not cost effective. And for a population like India with so many crores, it may take up to 37 years as per a survey to complete the testing. So universal precautions and social distancing is a fantastic method both inside and outside our OPD to practice. And yes, it is our legal and moral responsibility to notify a patient who comes from a quarantine zone without informing. 2, if there is a travel history from a red mark territory. And 3, if you suspect a case clinically, advise them at the same time notify and play safe so that you don't get any FIR or some sort of memo from health authorities. And last but not the least, we have to take care of our health. We all know that viruses and bacteria infect the weak body. All of us above 40 are prone to become diabetics, so many diseases, etc. Maintain our immunity, take adequate rest, minimize the OPD volume, give appointments, do good exercise and keep yourself healthy. This point, whether fumigation helps or not is still on a controversial core. So we have this technique called UV rays. As you can see, this is commercially available, but this is extremely expensive. For example, for a joint replacement, I do a lot of joint replacements. For a joint replacement OT size, you use a UV ray chamber of this cost around 40 lakh rupees. That's what the company at least is quoting. So instead, we have simpler methods of cleaning regularly, sanitizers, etc., which is commercially viable also for us. Of course, the UV rays has been proven earlier during the SARS virus time. For the corona time, there is no absolute article to prove this so far. And there are a couple of manuals available online freely. You can read them fully. It's around 100 pages each. It gives you much more information. So, as doctors, ultimately patients have always been cribbing about us, either in terms of our cost we put or that we are not treating properly, etc. But now doctors and police people have really come to the limelight beyond religious leaders, beyond everything else, and even the Avengers have started bowing down to us. This is our second chance in our life. We can still try to play demigod, take care of our patients, and they will be ever obliged to us. And we can break this vicious cycle of beating the virus, and we can take care of our public also at the same time, and we can finish it. We need not take this as a brunt, as if the whole world is in our hands, but simple, wise principles will definitely go a long way. A non-medico, the Chancellor of Germany, she said, nobody likes to hear this, but it is the truth. We are not living through the final phase of the crisis. We are at the beginning. We will still have to live with this virus for a long time. And this is absolutely true from a right iron lady. And those statistics have been keeping cropping up again of disasters. If we follow the right principle and act as heroes for our patients, guide them, treat them, we will never be the epicenter of any patients, and we can even teach them to teach others. And this corona can be removed from the Indian scenario forever. Take home message: corona is here to stay for a few months. Let's accept it and let's learn to live with it. We have to unlearn every principle which we have been doing across, from hand washing, etc., which where we have when so many patients come, we cut corners and do. We have to watch our hands, our face, and our actions. We will definitely, our patients and staff will appreciate our efforts and be with us. There is no role of heroism or casual attitude here. And with this, I complete my presentation, exorbitant presentation for over 40 minutes, which I hope is quite useful for all of you.
Definitely, sir. Thank you for Dr. Suman for your beautiful presentation. The session is now open for discussion to the panelists as well.
Okay. So, panelists Dr. Madhura and Dr. Mohan Prasad here.
We will take your questions, and Madhura can pass her comments before we ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fine. So the first question from Dr.
One second, please.
Yeah.
Dr. Madhura, panelist wants to give a few points, and then we'll go for the questions.
Okay,
All right?
okay, fine, sir.
So regarding a few things which everybody knows, but it's very difficult to get used to following. When you use masks, it's very important not to keep touching the mask. So we can practice touching the mask from behind the ears and pulling on the straps. So if you want to touch this part of the mask, we suggest wash your hands properly with the 20-second technique before you start doing that. So this is important. Another thing about the mask is about the sterilization of masks, because many people are wondering how to reuse an N95 mask because of limited in case you're using N95 for all your staff, which is really not advisable. Surgical 3-ply will do, but if you want to sterilize it, UV light is low dose UV light, and probably steroids sometimes, and more than anything, just this hot air oven for 70 degrees is suggested, but no more than two times you can do this kind of cycle. And few more things what I wanted to tell is, in our hospital we have like a bell system. Every 2 hours we ring the bell, which is a cleaning bell, and during that time everybody, including the doctor and the sisters, so it could be a multi-OPD or a single OPD practice, but have this system in place. Don't think, okay, I'm going to go home, but every 2 hours have yourself like an alarm system, and each of you have to clean every surface which you touched earlier within that last 2 hours. You think and remember and clean those surfaces, whether it's the keyboard or the mouse or the doorknob or the patient handle railings where the patients keep when you're examining the patient, or it could be anything, but just make sure you keep cleaning those surfaces, because we know fomites are an important source of transmission. And then we also have a hot water bell where all our sisters drink some hot water. So this is all something which we just came up with. And of course, about telemedicine, there's so many webinars about telemedicine, but the most important thing is to start doing it. Look up the guidelines and go in for telemedicine, because that's going to, I'm sure with so many years of experience, people even on telemedicine can find out which are the patients who really need to come to the hospital, and take it as a two-step thing. First, screen them on telemedicine, prescribe if it's not working, ask them to come, so that's going to help them. And having appointments, because if we're going to open up the lockdown and we're going to have a lot of patients, make sure you still have only a few appointments in an hour, maybe 4 or 5 an hour, as Dr. Suman said. Another thing is for sisters, there are more than 5 people in the OPD. Make sure that they do not have tea or coffee or any snacks standing together, because once you remove the mask, they will definitely chat and then they will have food at that time, or tea or coffee, but that has to be avoided. People have to stay alone when they are removing the mask. So that's very important. One more thing I wanted to say is people can change into some of the clothes after they step into the hospital. Either it can be some scrubs or those surgical or whatever, but some of the scrubs you can change into. When you're going back home, you can change back into the clothes when you go home, and have a bucket of water with some Dettol, wash, and then get inside your house, especially legs and hands. And another thing is patient chairs and like housekeeping. Whoever the people who are cleaning also should be provided with all, and those who are cleaning the toilets also should be provided with protective gear like masks, because they can transmit from one surface to another, and for themselves, because many people might be cold also. Right, that's what I wanted to tell.
I wanted to add a point. Like people showed that if there are doctors in the intensive care, when the foot gear which they're using, the overshoes, when they walk out of the intensive care with the overshoes, if there is coronavirus on the floor from the patients, this is in COVID treatment hospitals, and when they walk out, they can carry the virus from the intensive care outside. So, I mean, it can easily spread in whichever possible way. I think we have to protect ourselves properly, and the whole world we have to protect as a medical professional. We'll take up the questions now, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inputs. We'll take up the questions each by each. So the first question from Dr. Jitendra is that whether COVID is a droplet or airborne infection.
I told you right at the beginning, the SARS-CoV-1 and MERS used to be transmitted in millimeter particles, whereas the SARS-CoV-2, the novel coronavirus, comes in micron or micrometer particles just by the breath. Just a simple breath of the patient can transmit the virus, even in a pre-symptomatic phase or asymptomatic phase of the infection, or if he's a carrier. So he will not even know he's an affected person, but his breath can transmit the virus, producing an aerosol all around him. That is why, on an average, each person is supposed to be transmitting, each patient might transmit at least to an average of 5.2 people more. So, and it goes exponentially. So, that is a problem.
Hope the query was resolved. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohan. The second question goes with, again, Dr. Jitendra. Can you please tell us 5 important steps for a small doctor?
5 important steps. Okay. All right. So, number 1, minimize the human traffic, give appointments. There's no doubt about it. 2, make them wear masks, and even if it's a very small clinic, remember the polythene sheets I said, it's very inexpensive. One whole roll costs only some 3 digit, like I think 700 or something. And in a small clinic, you need only 1/4 of a roll. That's only 400 rupees max, not more than that. Okay. So 2, for that barrier protection. 3, educate your staffs and keep the areas clean. Ask them to have this buddy system, in the sense, let's say you have 2 staffs in a small clinic. One person make a mistake, let the other person teach them, and back on back. I think this should be fair enough. 5 points I've given you. Even for a very small clinic of just 250 square feet, this is more than sufficient.
Third question from Dr. Rajiv. Dr. Rajiv is asking whether I have a small OPD. If I wish to continue, I'm requiring a gown daily. So for the daily use and throw, any alternative gown, or I don't have the facility for autoclaving, because I don't have the facility of autoclaving. Is there any other alternative present?
So hypochlorite can be used for this. I think gastroenterologist Dr. Rajiv, right? So yes, you can wash it and also use hypochlorite for it. That should be enough. because we are treating non-COVID patients, but we are assuming that they are COVID. But since we are treating non-COVID patients, this should be fine.
Even when you go home, sir, your regular clothes can be put in 1% sodium hypochlorite water and soaked for a few minutes before washing them. Recommended is at least 20 minutes of putting in the water.
I hope that answers the query, Dr. Rajiv. Thank you so much, Dr. Suman and Dr. Madhura.
Yeah.
The next question goes with any idea of the benefit of N99 mask, which I had recently heard about.
N99. Okay. Okay. Fine. See, what is N95, N99? N95 means 95% of the aerosols is being filtered through. N99 is 99%. Try wearing an N95 mask. It will be so sweaty and sticking across. We have this natural habit to leave our finger and push it on the sides, and it defeats the purpose absolutely. A 3-ply mask with a physical barrier in between will give you practically a very good benefit. But if you feel you can bear it, you can wear an N95 or 99 mask. And 2, the cost part, and 3, the number of times you can reuse it, like Dr. Madhura said, how you have to sterilize it, etc. So that adds on to the point.
In the first outbreak that happened in Singapore, they found that the 3-ply mask is as good as the N95 mask. That's how they.
Yeah, the Singaporeans have published this paper also. You can just type it and it's available freely on Google.
Yes.
Hope that answers the query, Dr. Sangameshwaran. The next question goes with, is fumigation okay with hydrogen peroxide? Dr. Apurva Patel is asking the question.
Okay. Like I said, number 1, the substance which I put across is hydrogen peroxide with silver nitrates. All of us know that silver ions are also having an antiseptic property. Fumigation has, see, all of us don't know much about the coronavirus. At least for the SARS virus, they said UV light is more effective than fumigation. Okay. So regarding the coronavirus, we just hope that fumigation works, because this is a standard worldwide principle of disinfecting the whole area, whether it is an operation suite or ICU, etc. So fumigation alone trusting is not sufficient. Cleaning the surface with the substances, press and clean is more important, and frequency of cleaning is more important, because what's the point in cleaning only once a day when throughout the day you're touching 100 points or 1000 points of contact? So repeated action of cleaning is more important than this actual fumigation.
So again, this ultraviolet machines, cheaper machines are available now, which have been imported from Germany. But I think because of the transportation, which has been temporarily stopped, it's not coming up. But once those consignments arrive into India, I'm sure these UV lights will be much cheaper. But for a room of 16 by 16, you may require at least 4 UV lamps like that, which may come to about ₹1,00,000 in total. Each lamp will be about 20 to 25,000 rupees. So 4 corners, put 4 lamps, close it for 20 minutes, then it's ready. So that will become available now shortly. But we don't know when, but very soon.
But in these endoscopy suits and theaters, it's important to limit the number of objects inside the room. So keep it empty, just take in what you need and don't take in more things.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, Madhura. Like an endoscopy suite, we have so many things, all accessories put up, whatever, for any emergency we can use. But now, like as you said, it has to be. Can you mute your mic, please? Can you mute your mic?
Yes, muted. Yeah.
Yeah. So the endoscopy suite will not have unnecessary. All those unnecessary. So, what is the barest minimum requirement for that particular case should be made available in the theatre?
Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. I hope that answers the query. The next question, Doctor, goes with Dr. Angar. Whether please advise about the abdo pain and gastrointestinal symptoms seen in children with confirmed PCR positive SARS COVID-2 infection.
For you, yeah, yeah. Actually, the ACE2 receptors, which the coronavirus goes and combines with, and initiates an entry into the cell. And this, ACE2 receptor is found in the lungs and also entire GI tract in the intestines. So, and also in some of the biliary tree also it's there, the liver also. So then it can produce, like people have shown that about 11 to 20% of all acute SARS-CoV-2 infected patients, the COVID-19 patients, presented first with abdominal pain and diarrhea as a presenting symptom, after which the respiratory symptoms started. So coronavirus has also been shown in the fecal samples coming out of the positive patient, and thereby, like even sewerages can get infected, just like in polio. This virus can be found in sewerages also. That has been studied also. But whether this can transmit infection to somebody else is still a question mark. They have not proven as yet. But then one has to be aware of this abdominal pain and diarrhea as an important component of COVID-19 in about 11 to 20% abroad. I don't think we have any Indian statistics as such. So of our patients developing this, because there are varied strains of the coronavirus also. Even within our country, there's more than 4 strains have been identified. So we don't know how far this is going to be. But one has to be alert, even if somebody presents with stomach pain and diarrhea and with no respiratory symptoms, still you should think of the coronavirus in this present scenario.
Children present with fever and vomiting.
Yes, children with fever and vomiting. The vomiters can bring out the coronavirus. So,
Hope that answered that question.
Thanks a lot, sir, for answering an interesting question. The next question is from Dr. Balaraja Kumar. He says, how about UV light in the ceiling, which may cost less?
Okay, I'll take this question because this I discussed this with a couple of my friends. Unfortunately, I was the only one who became a doctor in my team, and all others are electronic engineers and very smart guys. So when I was asking about the UV light, he said there is some sort of square feet ratio how to space these UV lights. It's not only about the ceiling; it's about the walls, etc. That's more important than just putting it in one point, so that the radiance can go across. There are some specific patterns in which it travels. In fact, there was one. How this topic came between me and my friend is, I saw an email of some hospital in Chennai who converted an old fridge. They removed everything, kept UV lights in between, inside it, just 2 UV lights. And anything they wanted to sterilize, they used to keep it inside, close the fridge, and open it after 20 minutes. So this was a fantastic thing. I sent this across to my friend, and he started discussing about this to me. So UV light as such is not that very costly. It's about the installing, etc., and those other things. And as usual, all the Western companies will charge it way across by another 20-30%, 20-30 times their margin of profit. I'm sure if we can come up with the correct method, we can install local guys to put it across in our rooms over time. I just hope it answered.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Dr. Suman. The next question is from Dr. Asavri, who's asking whether do liquids like Dettol work for soaking clothes and surfaces like chairs?
Okay, fine. You see, since you use the word Dettol, I'll stick on to it. There are 2 types of Dettol. There is one with 70% concentration. There's one with 11%. So please note the value. Okay, number 1. 2, for clothes as such, hypochlorite is more sufficient, and because it's very cheap also. You can't empty a big bottle of Dettol all the time, this thing. And whereas this hypochlorite, which is just bleaching powder, which you dilute it, is quite easily available. 3, like I said, Dettol 11% will not act much, and the 70% you'll finish it so easily. It is much preferred for your hands and for all your other surfaces. I think that should be more than sufficient. What do you think?
absolutely.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Thanks a lot, sir. I hope that answers the query. A very interesting question coming up by Dr. Asavri again. Do the negative ions therapy work to kill the virus in the air? It was recommended in the OPD waiting room.
Negative pressure ventilation.
Negative ions.
What is this negative ion? I don't know. Negative pressure ventilation has been found to be useful in intensive care and all that. Instead of positive pressure, because the negative pressure will suck out the air. And basically, we don't want the air to be circulating inside. See, if there is an air conditioner, especially with laminar flow and with the micropore filters, this combo only transmits the virus and keeps on circulating it in the same room. So that is why, like Dr. Suman put up beautiful pictures where you keep both the doors open and allow cross ventilation so that you don't switch on the AC. So those sort of things will help. But I'm not aware of this negative concept.
So what we were planning on this, we have a kind of an intubation box where the intubations are done. I'm not talking about OP practice, but we're planning to do the endoscopy also through a modified intubation box. I think you've seen pictures where at the head end there's a box with fiberglass, and then the anesthetist puts their hand through one side and intubates the patient. So a similar box we're designing for endoscopy, and we're wondering if we can put in some negative pressure there to support the head. That may prove useful, because aerosolizing procedures, this sort of negative pressure over the contained space will prevent transmission to the entire room.
I hope the query was answered. Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir, and thanks a lot, madam. If there are any more questions coming up, quickly, the last question would be addressed by the panelist.
Okay, fine.
If there are more questions, no problem. We can continue.
Yeah. Delegates, if there are any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask directly as well, or else you can type it in the chat box down. Okay, fine. So there's a question from Dr. Govind Purohit, who's asking for routine OPD PPE, surgical gowns autoclaved can be used, which at the end soaked with sodium hypochlorite solution, followed by soap water washing, and then autoclaving in the drum to be used next time.
Oh, that's fine. That's perfect.
That was absolutely fine.
That's reusable and also economical.
Yes. But like I said, just remember, surgical gown is a full sleeve gown. You'll be touching so many surfaces, you think you're hyper safe. But whereas if you're touching an infected person accidentally, you're transmitting to the next person. So be very cautious in using surgical gowns. That's why WHO recommends half sleeve gowns, except in fever clinic and ICU, theater, etc. Those kind of places. Okay.
Another thing is, when removing the gown also, we have to remove it with another different gloves probably. You want to remove the gown, wear a different glove, remove it, throw the glove also.
Yes.
So then you're not infecting your hands.
And again, the gloves should not be disposed in open, dustbins. They should be closed dustbins. Lids. And preferably with a pedal, foot pedal. So that you can open it and close.
I hope that answers the query, Dr. Govind. Okay, sir. I guess, delegates, there are no more questions. Fine, sir. It was pleasure to have Dr. Suman, Dr. Madhura, as well as Dr. Mohan on board. I thank all the delegates also for active participation. It was a fabulous presentation by Dr. Suman, followed by a discussion by the panelists. Just to mention, we'll be continuing with such an interesting topic on Converge. Converge is an e-learning platform for the physicians. Also to mention, it has been brought to you by Recool as well as Edric. Thank you so much, Dr. Suman. The panelists also. Have a great day.
Alembic for
Last question for me. By using so many of our disposable things, are we not polluting the earth more and more?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
We are, so as far as possible, we should reuse our things. But in a situation like this, when the safety of human beings' life itself is at stake, we have no other goals, at least for some time.
Okay, sir. Thank you. The trio really, requires a very good applause from everybody. Thank you so much, sir.
All credit should go to Dr. Suman, who just gave a flawless presentation. We were all clapping here, the way he spoke.
You are in the hospital in a very good way. Excellent, excellent. Congrats.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, everyone, delegates. A very good presentation by Dr. Suman.
And you can make it available on some portal so that people can log in and watch.
Sure, sir.
Also couldn't log in. There's so many webinars happening simultaneously. So it becomes a big headache for people to note and log in. So please, post it somewhere so that people can just.
We request and permit Alembic to do the same on our behalf. We have absolutely no cost. Okay.
Sure, sir. We'll be doing that.
Right.
Thanks a lot, sir. Have a great day and a very good evening to all the delegates as well.
Thanks to all the starters who joined us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Good sir.